back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. I'm here in the studio. Stephen is at home because he's not very well, and we reckoned that it was the best place for him. Nice hot water bottle, Timmy the cat to keep him company. And you're still with us all right there, Stephen? You can still speak?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Jolly good.
Plodding on.
As you can see, also, we're joined by journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell and broadcaster Kel Meldon, because we'll go through the papers.
Yes, we are.
So shall I kick off first, Emma? Rishi's plans. The sun is going to shine next year, apparently.
I mean, this was your classic New Year's message from a politician. I don't blame Rishi for this particularly, but the idea that Rishi set out any plans in this New Year message is a very generous interpretation. It was your classic, it's all going to be wonderful next year and everything will be sunshine and roses and light, but I'm not going to tell you why or how we get out of where we are now. What
It didn't say much, did it?
It didn't say much of anything at all. And, you know, as I say, it's not Rishi's fault particularly, it's the classic, but I'm not entirely sure why they do it, other than everybody doesn't. If you don't do it, that would be the story. But it's just a bit vacuous, really. And I think Rishi should worry about the fact that he's slightly seen as not having anything to say. So not having anything to say once again at the start of the new year is a bit of a problem for him.
Yeah, neither of them said very much in their broadcasts.
It's the same for Keir Starmer, though, isn't it? In his New Year message, it's vacuous as well. I mean,
absolutely. No, I mean, they're all the same. It's not. I mean, I don't think the politicians themselves are the same, but all New Year's messages are basically next year will be great. Hey,
yeah.
And it's like, well, did I need to hear that from you?
No, in a way, you feel it's the king's job to give New Year messages. You leave it to him.
Yeah, or us here at GBNEWS.
Oh, don't go down that path.
Everything's going to be fine.
Well, we shall, fingers crossed. Claire, what's the Telegraph saying this morning?
Well, look, you know I'm not a great fan of AI at all, but this is deeply, because we've covered this before, this new artificial intelligence chat box thing. So now it's hit schools now, as we predicted it would, without any need for AI. We said it ourselves. We have got a crisis of education and original thought in this country. We've got a crisis of academia and children enabling themselves to become academics. And to become an academic, everyone knows what it is. You've got to have original thought, you reason it out, you forensically research your piece, you have your for, you have your against argument, but you funnel it and you channel it to your view. And that's the originality of it. Unfortunately now, what we're facing is that children who will be doing courseworks for GCSEs or A-levels in England and Wales, and indeed for their higher educational certificates in Scotland, what they will be able to do, free of charge by the way, is actually download this app, for want of a better word, key in keywords of what they want this essay to be written on. Lo and behold, you'll get an essay. And when this was first designed in Silicon Valley, I think Elon Musk had shares in it. He then sold it. I think it's now a Microsoft app. Universities were saying, well, we've got to turn it out, or turn the key, whatever it is, to process all the documents to make sure these are original pieces of work. We can't, there's no way this can write anything. And then the Times let this artificial intelligent app write part of their editorial opinion piece at the end. My goodness me, it was as if it was written by a person.
Stephen, have you played with it yet? Because you like these things. Have you played with it?
I do like these things, and I think there is an important place for them. But I think Claire's got a very valid point that we can't stop original thought.
Well, look, so teachers may be given guidance now on how to stop AI essay changing, as if they don't have enough to do. Trying to get the grades up, trying to get pupils to mark attainment socially, physically, geographically, mentally, academically. And yet they've now got this thrown into the mix as well. We know that children don't read as much as they used to, or they ought to. We know that they're not, developing friendships. We know there's a dire need for mental health help in the sector of children at school. They've been through pandemic. These kids have been through, a lot of hardship, and not in terms of, and I mean, hear me out here, they've been in terms of hardship, in terms of not being able to socially mingle. Socially, they were kept back a lot. And every single child has been affected by that. And okay, we can say they didn't fight a war, or they didn't do this. You're right, they didn't. But we need to realise that they have been stuck on their phones. They've not been disabled from Wi-Fi, have they? And that's a big issue. TikTok, Snapchat, everything.
But this AI thing is much, much bigger than any of that. My sons played with it on Christmas Day. We all played with it.
Yeah.
You can ask it to recite Shakespeare in the style of a GB newsreader, newsreader, and it does it. It's incredible. To say I was impressed would be completely to understate it. It is the most incredible bit of software. I don't know how do you stop technical progress like that there? You can't put it back in the bottle, can you?
You don't, but the other aspect of this is we're all sitting here trying to give a view on something. There's a thing called the Robotic Reporter, which it's got every single newsworthy item that's happened in the world, because let's face it, everything has happened in our lifetime so far. And what it has done is condensed everything into something, so that if you put in keywords, you will have a journalistic report on something that's happened. So you will no longer have the need for embedded reporters. You will no longer have the need for anyone to spout, what they want.
I think you will, though, because I still think, after having played with it all Christmas Day and being very impressed, it doesn't have original thought. It doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who makes my living as a writer, I'm a playwright as well as a journalist, and you sweat, and particularly with journalism, because you write with a quick turnaround, you may not sweat quite so much. Plays, you write and you rewrite and you rewrite and you rewrite, and you sweat over every single word and the meaning and the intonation and the way that it can be written. And I think that human element is so key. And I think we can replicate it to an extent with these AIs, but I think there is something that's missing. And I think the journalistic part, there's a judgment to journalism that is human, and the way that we tell a story, you may be able to replicate a style, but I don't think you can replicate that human element of judgment.
No, or the original research, but it will just... It assimilates everything. I mean, you could ask it to write a story in this style.
Oh, I'm sure it could write a terrible play in my style, but
it absolutely would. It can do that, but it wouldn't be able to come up with an original play like what you can.
I do hope not. Certainly the swear words that I invented for mine were quite my own.
Should we move on? It is frightening, but also brilliant. Emma, this terrible story about the social media influencer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there are two elements to this. There's the gotcha element, where he seemed to have captured himself by not being able to resist he was trying to go to Greta Thunberg and she got him big. And so there's the kind of slightly amusing social media element where he caught himself by filming a video with a pizza box, which apparently was how they found out where he was.
But he's not just an influencer. I mean, he's a nasty.
This is the bigger problem.
As you can see there, he's been detained in Romania on rape charges.
Yeah, and even before that, the stuff that he was spewing out as a role model, apparently a self-professed role model to young men, it's so toxic, and it worries me so much because our young men are really struggling. We see this with, suicide is the biggest killer of young men under 40. We do not need men telling you that you failed unless you fit into this very, very rigid model of what being a man is. And it worries me so much for young boys. And I just think we need to be so conscious of not giving them these terrible role models. And we are not. And there's a real temptation not to talk about people like Andrew Tate, who is just vile. But the problem is he's out there on TikTok, he's out there on YouTube, and the kids are finding it, and that worries me terribly. And I think it comes back in a way to what we were just talking about.
But the problem with this is, and look, in terms of what he's said in the past online, I would agree with you. I think it's really dreadful stuff. However, where do we draw the free speech line?
Well,
here?
absolutely.
This is it. We can't just bar people because they're saying things we don't like.
No, I completely agree with you, Stephen, but where I think this comes back to our previous discussion is we need to be teaching kids better critical thinking, better analysis of why he's wrong. So that instead of saying he should not be saying these things, not be allowed to say these things, we can better challenge, and kids can better challenge and say, hang on, that's not what being a man's really about. And I think that's where it's not a free speech debate. It's not about shutting him down, but being able to shut him out because you just know how wrong he is.
Yeah, okay. Fair point.
It's interesting that he was caught by the branding on his pizza boxes.
But I think that was a ruse.
Yeah.
I don't think that was anything to do with it. I think they knew where he was. Of course they do.
Well, they've arrested him now.
Yes.
They've arrested him. Let's have a look at Claire, the Express, should we?
Yep. Please do, because this is my favourite programme that returns tomorrow, Happy Valley. And I remember a few months ago I actually said on this show that there's more policing in Happy Valley, written by the brilliant Sally Wainwright, than there is on the streets of London. And you're talking about arrests, you're talking about everything else, you've got everything and more in this wonderful series. And as we're all down with the lurgy, I would really highly recommend, ahead of tomorrow's final third series, actually, if people went on to BBC iPlayer and caught up in the first series.
It's very, very good.
Firstly written in 2014, the second series in 2016, and the long-awaited return of this one. The acting is superb.
Sarah Lancashire, isn't it?
I've not watched it, and I'm going to absolutely take that recommendation.
It
must.
is brilliant.
And if it was inspired by Juliet Bravo, I mean, I
Isn't that
love
lovely?
Juliet
I
Bravo.
did like Juliet Bravo.
Lovely.
I think we all did.
We all
it was
did.
I
absolutely
mean, the
brilliant.
theme tune is running in my head now.
Yeah.
It's a smashing show.
Yeah, and to give that context, the writer Sally Wainwright was inspired by Juliet Bravo back in the 80s to write this piece for Happy Valley. And the other magnificent thing and I don't want to sound, I'm not at all like stalking him or anything like that, but James Norton is in it too.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
It's got everything.
It's
really
got
has.
absolutely
But mostly it is the brilliant writing and the
acting.
brilliant acting of Sarah Lancashire, who's absolutely fabulous. When I first went to Pebble Mill, I don't know if you ever did this,
That was in
Stephen.
Bristol.
Yeah. It was the Juliet Bravo set was in Pebble Mill.
Yeah.
And I remember first going to Pebble Mill and actually walking through to the big studios there, and the set was still up there. And that was
Wow.
the biggest thrill. It really was. None of the stars were there, but the set.
You know full well, Anne, that my history of going onto sets at Pebble Mill is not good.
No.
Because I was
Take souvenirs.
I was a student doing a work placement at Pebble Mill. And I went onto the set of Good Morning with Anne and Nick and pinched a load of stuff off the set.
Do you know, there's a disease that's forming a part of. Did you know that? It's called kleptomania, Stephen.
Well, maybe. But I just wanted I wanted a bit of TV gold.
Yeah.
And now you've got your own Anne. It's perfect.
Well, exactly.
You've got quite a few souvenirs. I think that's what they are. Souvenirs. It's not kleptomania.
Yeah.
It's collecting souvenirs.
Yeah, collecting souvenirs.
But it's some of those series like Juliet Bravo are so iconic. You just they're part of your everyday life because they were on your television screen always on a Sunday night or whatever.
Yeah.
They're part of your life, and to actually go there yourself and see it is just knockout. Absolutely.
One
brilliant.
day I'm going to make it to the Emmerdale set. That's
Is that what
my
you're dreaming
dream.
of?
I want to sit in the Woolpack and drink a pint. I love it so much.
But would you like to live there?
Well, no, because the murder rate's insane.
Yes, it is. It's like those beautiful Oxfordshire villages that Midsummer Murders.
Or Death
The
in
murder rate is
Paradise.
absolutely
Paradise.
absolutely crazy, but always worth watching. What's your favourite? Do let us know. Actually, let's have a bit of nostalgia about this wonderful series. And whether you ever went along to the set, the Queen went along to the Coronation Street set, I think a couple of times.
And Sarah Lancashire, of course, was in Coronation Street as well. She played
Raquel.
Charlie's love interest. Raquel.
Yeah,
She was superb. What a great actress.
Yeah, she
I just
really
love
is.
her.
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward to that. But very good recommendation.
Thank you.
For a miserable, cold, wet afternoon
Yes.
is to
Catch up.
catch up, yes, on the first
I will
two
be
series.
doing that. I will be doing that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Looking forward to
Excellent.
seeing you next hour. Thank you very much for that.